One of the worst things about modern society is the way in which choosing not to participate in endless gossip online is considered antisocial, rude, or arrogance. You are expected to be fully engaged with the world, always sharing your thoughts and opinions online, provided, of course, that they aren't offensive, and that is no guarantee these days. In this state of affairs, the call for further steps along the road to autonomy appears like arrogance or hubris, fantasticality, or simply folly. In a world that will never stop talking, the need for an introverted and reflective way of living has never been more desired by those who do not wish to verbalize their every thought and feeling in a virtual echo chamber. There are some internet gurus that say you can find peace of mind in the midst of the hustle and bustle of the marketplace or the backstabbing office. But these gurus are wrong. You cannot expect to avoid a contaminant if you continue to expose yourself to it. Eventually, you will get sick. In a world with constant social media access, ideas and mood spread faster than viruses in a crowded New York subway. Many philosophers from time immemorial have advocated a retreat from familial and societal obligations into the solitary life as being the only means to acquiring emotional harmony and mental equilibrium. The French philosopher Michel Montaigne is one of my favorite examples. At the age of 39, Montaigne retired from civil life to his tower, where he began to write his influential essays on topics ranging from solitude, clothing, politics, and even cannibalism. According to Montaigne, the root cause of most of society's problems exists in the mental realm, and if we are to have any hope of finding inner stillness, then we must remove ourselves completely from all social ties that jeopardize our mental harmony. And this was back in the 1500s, well before the time of the internet. Our disease lies in the mind, which cannot escape from itself, and therefore is to be called home and confined within itself. That is the true solitude, and that may be enjoyed even in populous cities and the courts of kings, though more conveniently apart. Many people try to get rid of their stress by changing one set of circumstances for another, like they may give up a relationship for a new career. This is just exacerbating the problem, and the cycle of pain and suffering will continue until they have sequestered and repossessed their own souls. Only in solitary confinement can we take stock of our lives, dissolve attachments, and find equipoise and peace. Now, since we will attempt to live alone and to waive all manner of conversation amongst men, let us so order it that our content may depend wholly upon ourselves. Let us dissolve all obligations that ally us to others. Let us obtain this from ourselves, that we may live alone in good earnest, and live at our ease too. The goal is not to abandon all of our responsibilities and live at our own whim. The goal of solitude, according to Montaigne, is to live at more leisure and at one's ease. Most people do not always go the right way into solitude. Sometimes when we think we have freed ourselves from all of our concerns, we have merely traded one set of concerns for another. If there is turmoil in our personal lives, then we have not achieved the right distance. As Montaigne says, our problem lies in the mind. Shaking off our outer concerns does not necessarily free us from the principal vexations of life. To put it in the words of Montaigne's favorite Roman poet Horace, reason and prudence, not a place with a commanding view of the great ocean, banish care. If one does not first discharge the burden that oppresses his mind, then seclusion will only make it press upon him harder. It is not enough to get remote from the public. More importantly, we must flee from the popular conditions that have taken possession of the soul. Only then can the individual sequester himself and come again unto himself. You say, perhaps, you have broken your chains. The dog who after long efforts has broken his chain, still in his flight drags a heavy portion of it after him. So it is not enough to isolate ourselves from others. We must also remove the influences of the group over our minds before we can recognize our true self from others. If we have not learned to separate ourselves from the group, then we will not be able to differentiate our own values and beliefs from what society deems appropriate. Some people have spent so little time in self-reflection that they are convinced that the opinions of their group are also their own. They and the group are of one mind. This is what the German philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche calls the common conscience. For some people, their conscience is really the conscience of the herd. Many of our opinions come from outside and are not the result of our own reason and reflection. Conclusions grow up in us like fungus. One morning they are there, we know not how, and they gaze upon us morose and gray. Woe to the thinker who is not the gardener, but only the soil of the plants that grow in him. According to Carl Jung, the individual is in danger of being consumed by the social leveling processes at work in modern society. He is only acceptable if he appears acceptable to the members of the group he is a part of. He must resign himself to being tolerated. He has no individual identity, but only a persona that is part of the collective. The common person who has not learned to shield themselves from group pressures will have their individuality smothered as they are more and more isolated from themselves and become anonymous in the collective. In his lonely solitude, the solitary man feeds upon himself. In the thronging multitude, the many feed upon him. Now choose. Some people will join certain movements or become part of exclusive groups as a shortcut to an individual identity. These people have not realized that it is their own task to differentiate themselves from others and to stand on their own 2 feet. Collective identities only interfere with the fulfillment of one's own individuality. I go into solitude so as not to drink out of everybody's cistern. When I am among the many, I live as the many do, and I do not think I really think. After a time, it always seems as if they want to banish myself from myself and rob me of my soul. Once we have a strong independent identity, we will be more resilient against the pressures of conformism. Since we are in the right state of mind, our solitude will accompany us even in public places. We need to isolate ourselves first to become acquainted with our own souls. Only then will our solitude not depend on seclusion. As Montaigne says, it is not enough to get away from the pressures of society. The mind must also be called home and confined unto itself. Therefore, it is not enough to get remote from the public. 'Tis not enough to shift the soil only. A man must flee from the popular conditions that have taken possession of his soul. He must sequester and come again to himself. Montaigne says, once you seek solitude, you should no longer concern yourself with the way people talk about you. Only consider how you're going to talk with yourself. You are to retire unto yourself, but first, you must be prepared to receive yourself. You cannot trust yourself in your own hands if you cannot govern yourself. Most people have become so accustomed to being directed about how to live their lives, whether it's from their parents or society, that they would have no idea what to do with themselves if they were to take back their freedom. For this reason, many people will allow their lives to be directed by society, because it is too uncomfortable to be responsible for themselves. As Nietzsche said, there are some who throw away their last value when they throw away their servitude. In order to live in solitude and by our own principles, we have to subjugate ourselves with a rigorous self-discipline to break old habits and to establish new constructive ones. Nietzsche thought that only after you have become a slave to yourself can you truly be free. Obedience to external authority makes slaves of us all, while personal integrity makes individuals. You must wish to consume yourself in your own flame. How could you wish to become something new unless first you had become ashes? Both Nietzsche and Montaigne thought you must become the legislator, judge, and prosecutor of your own law. This is no easy task, and many people fail at it because they don't have the strength of will to discipline themselves. This task requires a brutal self-honesty that many people are uncomfortable with. According to Nietzsche, every individual must show that they possess the right to free themselves from society and to direct their own lives. Are you a new strength and a new right, a first movement, a self-propelled will? Can you compel the very stars to revolve around you? Can you give yourself your own evil and your own good, and hang your own will over yourself as a law? Can you be your own judge and avenger of your law? Terrible it is to be alone with a judge and avenger of one's own law. Thus is a star thrown out into the void, and into the icy breath of solitude. Once we have taken possession of our soul, which is the most valuable thing we'll ever own, it can never be taken away from us unless we give it up willingly. According to the ancient philosopher Antisthenes, we should furnish ourselves only with things that could escape a storm. The wise man never loses anything if he has himself. Montaigne did not think that we should give up all possessions and live like a monk in a monastery. Family wealth and especially health should be had if we can get them, but we should not become so attached to our possessions that our happiness depends upon them. Instead, we should reserve for ourselves a place of solitude, wholly our own, where we are entirely free, where we can enjoy our liberty, our principal solitude and retreat. In solitude, be company for yourself. Many people sacrifice their peace and equilibrium for riches and recognition. For the individual that is disgusted with the common way of living, he should model his new existence in solitude by the precepts of reason. After we have shaken off all of the obligations and passions that disturb the tranquility of the body and the soul, we can start to occupy ourselves with whatever activity suits our character. Some will write like Montaigne did, others may compose music, some can paint, while others might enjoy building things. Whatever you occupy yourself with, live in premeditation and reflection, banishing all cares and living by reason. Montaigne concedes that for many people the fully renunciant life might not be possible. Nevertheless, we can still live in a manner advocated by Eastern philosophy, in dispassion and detachment, a state where we live in the world but are not of it. And in the twilight of our lives, we shall not fear the descent into solitude and silence, regarding such a state of affairs as a release from worldly demands and obligations, leaving us the time and space to caress the spirit and soothe the soul. As Nietzsche wrote in Ecce Homo, in solitude we enjoy a quiet recovery and return to ourselves. I need solitude, which is to say, recovery, return to myself, the breath of a free, light, playful air. As we relinquish the temporal world, we withdraw back into our own selves, like those animals that erase the tracks into their lairs, burrowing deep into quiet tranquility. He who delights in solitude is either a wild beast or a god.